Today I'm going to welcome you to the Smart Business Show. We're going to talk to Brent Weaver from yougurus.com. Now listen through till the end, because the end of the main show, he actually offers, if you email him, there's a $200 free web course he's going to give you. And then actually, even before I officially started the show, we talked about some other interesting stuff. So I'll do another quick intro there. We talked about taxes, really, and how I'm a little late in Canada, a couple days, and how really my business last year was the most revenue-wise, but it felt the hardest financially. And then how he and what he does along with his partner to combat that. So that's a good one. I'll do a quick intro there again when you get to the end of the official show and see some of the pre-show stuff. It comes in with me saying that I was late on taxes. And so we've already talked about that and laughed a little bit. And then he talks about what he does. So today we're talking to Brent Weaver. And actually one question, which I didn't prep you for, is on Skype it always says Brent Weaver Weaver. Why does it say Brent Weaver Weaver on Skype?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Maybe I have not defined my middle name, or it's my full name, if those that are interested. Brent William Weaver.
Okay.
So it's my middle name is not Weaver. That would have been that would have been interesting if my parents did that, but they thankfully gave me a pretty normal name. I have not been so kind to my kids.
My daughter, my youngest, always gets, are you named after Lord of the Rings? Because her name is Arwen, and which is an elf in Lord of the Rings. And we always say, well, no, but we suggested the name, thought it was great, and then I told my wife, because I always suggest weird names, that it's also in Lord of the Rings, and she's like, oh, okay. But it was like on my screen, I was looking at the name prior to that.
It's a beautiful name.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself besides your middle name? What do you do?
Yeah. So we help digital agencies with accelerating and growing their business, really breaking through the ceiling that they might be faced with in their life. And our sweet spot is really companies that are between 1 and 9 people. So if you have a business, you're a freelancer, you're looking to grow that business, get beyond yourself, or you have that kind of 1 to 9 people in your business, we can really help you figure out your marketing, sales, and operations side of the company. And mostly what we do is take things and systems that other successful agencies have used, like myself when I ran my agency for 12 years, and we have kind of blueprinted those as a starting point, and then figuring out what really works for you, like what do you want out of the business, hence the You Gurus, and leveraging those blueprints and those systems to really help you create the business that you really want. So that's what I do with my professional time. So
what are the 1 or 2 like ceilings that people are really trying to break through usually?
Well, money and time are probably the 2 big ones, unless it's something that's related to not liking what they're doing. That's kind of a separate thing. If you're like you're running an agency doing a service or a type of work that you're not really into, then that days get long. But most people aren't making enough money, or then you have the agency that maybe is doing $250,000 a year or $500,000 a year, but the owner's not taking home anything. So again, a money issue there. So that's a big ceiling that people have is really, and it starts with the clients, what kind of clients you're doing, which starts with the positioning that your business has, and the overall strategy that you've put on paper that you're going to create. I think unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs keep their strategy in their head. So one of the exercises that we have our boot campers go through right away is putting their strategy on paper and having somebody just kind of give it a sniff test. And one of those somebodies is one of our digital agency owner mentors. And so it's somebody that is experienced at this, that looks at strategies, plans for hundreds of agencies, kind of year round. They're running their own agency and they're looking at these plans. And so we really help them put that on paper, and then we help them make sure that it's make sure we catch any glaring issues, like the person that wants to get $50,000 projects from the business that just started out and is a one-man show, right? That's a very hard that's a very hard sell to try to find the business owner that's making $50,000 a year that wants to. You're trying to convince them to spend $50,000 on their website. And so we figured out how to help them with that strategy, and then really teach them some business fundamentals. I think a lot of people are really good at their craft. They're great at developing, great at designing, and they're lacking those business fundamentals. And if they spend a little bit of time, just easy amount of time working on some of those business fundamentals, that usually has a profound impact on their overall quality of life. And so we spend our time focused on that. And you guys can go learn, development from one of the gajillion sites that provides that, or design or whatever, code school type things. But, if you actually want to figure out how to make more money and then free up your time, and the time element, maybe we can talk about today. I know, I've talked about that at length, but how to keep yourself from working 70 or 80 hours a week and get paid a competitive market rate for what you're doing in the business is like a really important prerequisite for me. I hate talking to agency owners that treat themselves as their like own worst employee. Like they pay themselves an intern salary and they expect 80 hours a week. Like it's a lie that you tell yourself that that's okay. And it doesn't have to be that way. So.
Yeah, one thing I was listening to on your podcast, what's the name of it again? Because that escapes me right now.
The Digital Agency Show.
That's right. And that was you were talking with one of your guests in episode, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe, about like, are you paying yourself market rate? And if you're not, then it's time to start asking yourself hard questions. And that was a good set of questions to ask yourself. Are you paying yourself market rates?
I did that for years. I was like, oh, I need to pay my employees first, and they're the most. And really, what it came down to was I was avoiding a hard decision in my business, which was maybe I wasn't positioned well enough in the marketplace to have the types of team members I had that worked for me. Maybe the people that I had working for me, maybe I had too many people working for me. Maybe I should not have gotten a downtown office with two-tone paint and the flat panel screens and the frosted glass. Like maybe those were decisions that I should have figured out how to undo, which would have maybe hit my ego a little bit. But I was avoiding a lot of hard decisions, and the excuse I was giving was, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I need to sacrifice myself. And that led to a lot of really, really bad personal problems that, were very damaging to my life overall, because there wasn't balance. There wasn't, I was borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and building up debt, and I was killing relationship after relationship in my life because I was like, oh, it's all for the business, right? And it was really all because I was unwilling to have the hard conversations and make some hard decisions. And so now I make those decisions like insanely fast. If something's not right in the business and I need to make a hard decision, then I just do that as fast as I can.
Yeah, I wonder, like, speaking of hard decisions in offices, I just gave up my office. This is my second month in the office, second month back at home. And that was in some ways a hard decision. As I said before, I had the most revenue year, but it never felt like it was the most revenue year last year. And so we made the decision because we have an internal policy of no debt. So not even credit cards really. So that made me make the decision at a certain point because I was like, I can't finance this anymore. But it didn't make it feel any easier as I packed up. That's for sure, to make that hard decision, despite knowing that was the decision that we need to make for our family. For work too.
I mean, back in 2000, when I got my first like proper office, I think it was back in 2005, and we were working out of our kind of a loft comfortably. Between my business partner and I, we lived in the same loft, and we had like an area. We got this loft specifically because it had a large area that we could turn into kind of a home office, and that was like fine. And we were insanely profitable. We were doing these like huge projects, and we were making a lot of money, and our overhead was like nothing. And then one guy comes over that we were pitching a deal to, and he comes over to talk about his project, and he said something like, well, yeah, I kind of thought you guys were like a real company, and I feel kind of like we're probably not going to move forward because I don't feel like you guys are established enough yet for me. It was a $7,000 website. Like, oh God, like what did I need to show you, right? So that one guy, like, I was like, crap, we just lost a deal. Like, we better get an office, right? So then we go and start doing what we think people should because we want to portray. And I think in hindsight, I should have been like, okay, like, if you want to go,
told you he's not your ideal client, right?
Right. If you want to go pay for some overpriced downtown agency, then be my guest. And so what did we do? We went and got downtown office space and several thousand square feet, and started hiring full-time employees because we wanted to create that image of confidence that we could win the big deals. And that probably I don't regret it. It's become the bedrock for some really important business experience, but if you're insecure about that kind of stuff, I think the bigger issue is maybe, why are you insecure? Like, what about you is uncomfortable with this idea? And then also, how do you lean into your your weaknesses or your perceived weaknesses as strengths. So if I would have done it over after somebody had said that to me in a meeting, I probably today would go to my website and write a blog post about why our agency is better because we don't have the downtown office space and attract those customers that want more of that.
Well, I think they're telling you like he doesn't trust you, right? I was actually just sending an email back and forth with a client today, and she's hesitating making a deal with me on a project. And as I think about it, really, she's just saying she doesn't trust me to be able to do it. And I'm at a loss of what to tell her to trust me still. So I think, if she doesn't come back with what I last said, I'm just going to say, hey, clearly we can't come up with something. You need to find someone that you trust because you don't trust me.
And unpack
and that's
that.
That's not like, I'm not saying she's making a personal judgment. They're not. They just don't trust you for that, right? She's not saying I'm a liar or anything like that.
Well, and if I would have dug more into that part of it, I think what I immediately did was I got in the defensive. I started defending that, oh, well, we've been in business this long and we should, versus understanding maybe he was giving me a clue to some other truth that maybe his last web designer was a fly-by-night operator and lived out of his house and didn't return his phone calls and emails. And so instead of defending myself, I should have asked him a question of, why is that important to you?
Right.
And,
you never know what happened on the other end, right? I even think of it when I'm writing some code, if I'm looking at something and I see like, this looks so dumb, but I was never there when the decision got made. I don't know. Maybe they said the day before launch that you have to do this right now. Right. So it's tough, but it's tough not to get on the defensive, right? Because it does feel like a personal attack when it's your business because it's part of you.
Yeah. It was his problem, not my problem.
Yeah,
which I learned from you recently. So, which I have been saying all the time. I'm like, that's not my problem. That's his problem. Okay, cool.
Yep. My shoes are in a knot. My kid says, that sounds like a problem. It's not mine yet because you haven't asked me for anything, but that sounds like a problem.
That's great.
So let's talk about your 35-hour rule, which you said to me last couple of times we've talked in the last few weeks. So why don't you just say it again? What's your 35-hour rule?
Yeah, so I guess from a story perspective, anytime I'm working a lot, my wife kind of calls me out on it, and it came from I was at a conference, a digital agency conference, and this guy goes up and is talking about the business that he runs. It's a 200-person digital agency, multi-million-dollar company, and he got to this part where he said, I only work 35 hours a week, and anytime I work more than 35 hours a week, that's a sign that I'm doing somebody else's job. And everybody in the audience was like, what? This guy, 200-person agency? He works 35 hours? Like, what? And everybody in the room was like, BS, like, that's not possible. And everybody's like saying that's not possible or whatever. And, he graciously kind of went and did some Q&A on it, but it really stuck with me. Like, who else's job am I doing? And so it became this personal kind of just an alarm goes off for me now. And I shared this with my wife, and I said, hey, if I'm ever working more than 35 hours a week for an extended period of time, or where we haven't, previously agreed upon a big, push coming up. Like, I'll give you an example. This last weekend, we had a 3-day company mentor retreat where we had 11 people from our team out to Colorado, and it was like 3 full days of being on. And literally on Monday, I collapsed, just so burned out. Right. But she knew months ahead that this was coming up. It was just part of the thing. But then there's other times where I don't tell her that I'm working a lot, and I maybe make some changes in the business. And one of these times for me, it's happened multiple times, but last fall, I made some personnel changes. I let go of a support person and an office admin because we were getting rid of our office. And there were certain responsibilities that they did that I did not line up people for ahead of time. So I was like, I'll just do it for a while. So I found myself at 11 or 12 o'clock at night cranking through support tickets. And I'm doing that every single night of the week for 2 or 3 hours. And then I was even doing some collections work, right? And I found myself very quickly after making these personnel changes, I was working, 60, then 70, then probably 8 hours a week because I basically took on 2 or 3 additional responsibilities. And at the time, in the moment, it felt very productive. Like, I'm getting stuff done, I'm so good at support. And I have the realization, first of all, that I was like, wow, I'm also the highest paid support person that I've ever had working for my company. But then my wife just kind of asked, she's like, hey, whose job are you doing now? Like, is it somebody that either is on the team that you're compensating for because they're not good at what they do, or you're asking them to do something that they're not good at, or you've again taken on responsibility without really thinking about the ramifications. And so I gave her permission just to call me out on it. And again, it's not I don't have it as a rule, like I will only work 35 hours a week. I do what the business needs. It's just more of being conscious of as the founder, as the CEO, as the business visionary. And this might sound kind of crazy, but you really don't, if you work smart, you really don't need to put in more than 35 hours a week. I think people, myself included, it's easy to feel productive, but you're really just kind of doing busy work or doing a lot of waste. And so getting conscious about that quickly and giving yourself a little bit of a rule. And for me, that helps. Like a 35-hour rule helps. If I'm working basically more than 7 hours a day, then for more than a couple of weeks, then usually it's like, hey, what's going on? Like you're not coming home for dinner, or you're leaving before we have breakfast as a family in the morning. And usually if I'm starting to schedule things before 8:30 in the morning, that's usually where like I start skipping like family breakfast. I start running out and just grabbing like a Nutri-Grain bar or something like that. And so that's usually the another sign when Nutri-Grain bars start to get having to get ordered more often. That's usually a sign again that I'm getting outside of my 35 hours.
You need to put a constraint on it, right? Only one box of Nutri-Grain bars per month, and that's it.
I'm
you look at it and be like, oh, clearly I'm working too much.
I'm a big fan of leading and lagging indicators. So the leading indicator to burnout is definitely like the microwave burritos and Nutri-Grain bars.
Cool. I know my wife always knows when business is stressing me out because I find some video game to play on my iPad and start playing it. I know, like I don't normally play at all, but she'll see me playing a game, and if it's more than like a day or two, she's like, "What's wrong?" There's very few exceptions to that. Has been very few exceptions.
Like what are you avoiding? And and what's interesting.
Or what should I know? Right? She'll also ask, "What should she know about the business at that moment?"
And when I look at the 35-hour rule, for example, if I find myself working more, then I just I don't keep a time log all the time, but I'll start to look at what I'm doing every week and just start to make notes of, I'm spending 2 hours a day doing these collection activities, and sometimes it's hard to like stop and go upstream and let some problems pile up, because that usually happens for me if I'm already extended all the way. Like for me, when I brought in the customer service person to pick that up, I had to kind of just check out and like not do support for a week because I had to go find somebody and I had to create the processes and rehire. And so I had to just be okay with the fact that for a week, we were going to get a backlog, but then I got that new person in there, and then it was like, okay, cool, that just freed up my time, and I'm back to good now. And this goes all the way up to like leadership positions. We just hired a director of operations, really expensive, painful to do that, but I found that I was only spending about 20% of my time running the operations of our business, and our business really needed 100% role. And so that was not only taking things off my plate, but more excitingly, increasing our business's capacity, helping us to break through that next ceiling, because we kind of found ourselves hanging out at this revenue ceiling, and it's like, what's the limit? And the limit was really that we had all these great product and growth ideas, but we didn't have that capacity of somebody to actually follow through on those, that the growth that we had experienced basically hit my capacity limit. So we had to bring in somebody to do that, and then immediately I got time back, and the business has more legroom to do some of the fun growth things that we have in our backlog.
I'd like to go back to something you said, where you said, ask yourself a question: are you getting someone to do something that they're not suited to? Which I think is an important part. Ever since we first talked, I've been thinking more and more as I write about like business and family and relationships, and especially with family, bringing people into your business and getting them to do a job that they're just not suited to, right? Like at one point we tried to get my wife to keep my books up to date regularly because she said she could do that. She just can't do it, right? There's enough kids and we homeschool, and she just cannot do it. And so my first reaction was to be mad. My second reaction was like, she just shouldn't do it. Like, if this was an employee, I wouldn't be mad. I would just say, you don't have a job. And so I basically took her job away and made it someone else's at that point. How do you determine what people are really suited to? And what do you do once you get someone, I guess, in your business? Do you move them around if they're not, or is it case by case, or do you say goodbye?
Well, I can talk about myself for starters. There's plenty of things that I am not good at. I am definitely not good at anything that it requires sustained effort over a very, very long period of time. I'm really good at things that require a huge amount of effort to get off the ground and to get people and multiple parties committed to something. So thinking about like bringing on a new project or product that requires investment and a team to be put together, and it requires a lot of people to get bought into the vision, like that is great for me. Actually seeing that project through the finish line, absolutely terrible for me. Now, not to say I can't do that. It's just that doing that type of work drains me beyond anything else. Like I will just, it takes me twice as long. By the end of the project, it's taking me twice as long to get, everything with the project done. It just takes that much kind of energy from me. So I use a kind of a very rudimentary tool called Delegate Elevate. It's from the book Traction. And it essentially just you write on a list of paper like everything that you do or could be doing in your business. You can also do this for your personal life as well. Super helpful. And then you take all that list of things and you copy it over to a worksheet that's split up into 4 quadrants. On the bottom right is the things that you don't like doing and you're not good at. The bottom left are the things that you don't like doing but you're good at them. Which that's kind of the the dangerous box, right? And then the top right is things that you're good at that you like doing, and the top left is things that you love doing that you're great at. And so what you do is just copy everything that you're currently doing over to that sheet, and then everything that's below the line, so the things that you don't like doing, you should delegate and get those. Delegate, automate, or just get rid of those things as soon as you can. And not the things that you don't like doing because they're challenging or something, but it's just the things that you just like you could never imagine yourself, even if you got good at that thing, like really enjoying that thing. And so I do that. I have my team do that. And I even have had my spouse do that. So we look at, things around the house, things that maybe there's something that I have to do all the time that I really don't like doing and it really makes me angry. Like grocery shopping. Like if I grocery shop, I don't like doing it. My wife loves to grocery shop. So it's not about like finding some cool service or outsourcing that and increasing your expenses at home. Now that could be an option, a way that you deal with that. But it could also just be a way of saying, here's this thing that I just really don't get enjoyment or fulfillment out of. And grocery shopping, like choosing the food and nutrition for our family is just something that my wife loves doing. So it could be as simple as saying, I'm going to do something else so that you can go do that. Like I'll take care of the kids and we'll go to the park. And that's in my love doing box. So then I can take the kids to the park and she can go grocery shopping and it's a win-win. You can of course take that same philosophy to your business, right? Things that, I don't like doing the production side of a podcast. So my, one of our guys here at the office, like he loves that stuff. He loves, kind of working with content. And so I literally just don't touch it. Like he presses record.
Yeah, I don't do good at entering my receipts, so I just send them off to my bookkeeper because I'd be doing them all still instead of just submitting my taxes.
Now, if you have, this gets into, because one of your other questions was, do you just let those people go if they're not? So if you have somebody that's doing something for your business and they clearly don't like doing it, it's draining them, it's not what they're meant to do, then you either have one or two choices. You can, I guess you have 3 choices, but you have two choices that I like to take, which is one is you can move them to another seat in the business. Now you need to, when you do that, it's not to solve the problem of, I don't want to fire this person. That's a really bad reason to move somebody to a different seat. So when I do have another seat that's open in the business, I would highly recommend still go out to the marketplace and get applications for that. But tell the person that you have in the business, like say, hey, you could be considered for this position. So actually, not just moving them because it's super comfortable to do that, it's easier, but actually making sure that this person is the right person for that seat by comparing them to what's available in the marketplace. Because if you're moving somebody from one seat to another just to avoid firing them and making them upset and have to go through some adversity in your life, that's a really bad reason to move them to that seat. And you're going to end up failing anyways. You're just going to fail somewhere down the line, 6 months or a year down the road, and potentially have other problems for that. But if they are the right person for that other seat and you compare them against the marketplace, then that's a really good outcome for that. The other outcome is to let them, set them free. I like to even not look at that as firing, but like set them free. Every person that I've, fired in my business has gone on to do really great things. Now, not maybe immediately, but maybe immediately they're in tears in the office. But I do it in a way that's super genuine. And if there's anything that I can do to help them, unless they've committed like some kind of fraud or whatever, like if they've actually been doing a great job, but they just aren't the right person for a company anymore, like I will do my best to put them in the great position to find something else. And, whenever I've done that in the right way, like those people, maybe it takes them 6 months, but they eventually find a better fit for them. And it's me doing them a favor. Like you're doing somebody a disservice by keeping them. So I'm pretty hard and fast about that. Once I get that feeling in my stomach that this is the wrong person for my company, then I like to make that decision as fast as I can.
Cool. Now you mentioned the book Traction. I'm not sure how much. Don't quite have enough time. We have another few minutes to go, but if you can give us a short overview of Traction and EOS, would be wonderful.
Yeah. So, and I'm a big EOS fan.
Which stands for
Entrepreneur Operating System. So the book Traction, that's, a lot of people get all giddy when somebody says, "Oh, you read Traction, I read Traction." So I actually saw a guy speak named Mike Payton years ago, and his book that he co-authored with Gino Wickman, the author of Traction, is called Get a Grip. It's a fable of somebody basically getting an EOS implementer and implementing. And it just really resonated with me. And I realized that what we were doing in our business was we were inventing products to solve product, problem solutions kind of fit and product market fit in the marketplace. We were being innovative to create new services that could solve real problems for businesses, right? So we're being innovative and creating some new cool stuff, right? So we were doing that, and simultaneously we were inventing our own way to operate our business. And the problem is most businesses, you don't really need to have an innovative way of operating your business. Like you just need to have a system that everybody agrees is the system. Like, are you a Windows user or are you a Mac user? Right? You have to just choose one of them. You can't be like sitting there as a company if the operating system of the business is supposed to be uniform and your IT services are supposed to support each other and people are able to make presentations and whatnot in conference rooms. You can't have like the one dude that has like the Linux machine and he just, because you're in there like you want to present your slide deck and he has the computer and you're like, oh, I guess I got to like figure out what the heck this is all about, right? And I think that's what we were doing for years is we were co-creating an operating system for our business. We were trying to create our own OS simultaneously while trying to find, problem solution, product market fit, and scale a business. And so once I read Get a Grip and then Traction, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to hire an implementer and we're just going to, run the business on this system. So everybody in the company read Traction, had an implementer, and and the guy that I mentioned earlier that talked about he was only working 35 hours a week. He actually said that the way they were able to do that at the scale his business was at was through implementing EOS as a business. So I basically we've had an implementer working for us for 3 years now. And we run our business really to a T on EOS. It took a long time to get a lot of things straight, and we're not perfect by any means, but we do have a business playbook. We have scorecard. We have a very clear accountability chart. We have quarterly meetings. We've had quarterly offsites now for 3 years, so we've done that, 12 times and had annual meetings. And everybody on the team is super clear about what the business is. Like if you asked anybody on my team, like, what does You Gurus do? They would tell you, right? They have the same vision for the business that I do. Now I might have more color and texture to where we're headed than they are, but at least they know the game that we're playing. They're not sitting here like feeling like they don't have a say in that, and they understand that, and they also know what they're accountable for. And it's a very much run by the numbers business. If there's problems, not to say that just because you track something on a scorecard that it fixes itself. It doesn't. Sometimes there are times when we have issues and we're like, man, we just can't figure this out, and we just week after week just keep plugging away at it.
But you know about it, right? That's the thing. You know about it.
We do, and that's
you at least know there's a problem that needs to get solved.
Yeah, so we put a lot of work into that, and part of our bootcamp program, we kind of introduced some tools from EOS. I'm a big fan. By no means do we try to be implementers for people, but I think for a lot of freelancers and small agencies that don't have $40K a year to invest in an implementer, they can go through our programs and get some nuggets for a few $1,000 and apply what's necessary to their business.
I find with a lot of my clients, even just a little bit of process, right? I've been following the 12-week year with a lot of my clients and for their planning process and focusing on like their daily tasks, right? Or weekly, you followed up with 3 clients this week. You reached out to 3 new prospects, like focusing on those things, bring the outcomes they want. And just because they have a plan helps the business exponentially, right? It doesn't matter if it's perfect, and not getting caught up on the perfect, because I just tell them often, no, this is the plan, do it. Oh, but no, but this is the plan, now do it.
Well,
I'm going to ask you on Monday if you did it. That's all I'm going to ask.
This kind of ties into the 35 hours and also the book Essentialism. I don't know if you guys have read that, but
I have read
Less but Better, right? So one of the things that early on when I was doing EOS, they had this concept of rocks. Like every quarter you take on like 1 to 3 or 4 rocks, like big priorities, right? And it's funny, I go back to my quarterly planning worksheets from 3 years ago. And it was like we just wanted to just dive into the rock buffet. It was like, oh, we can define like, oh, new website, new platform, new. Each person would have 4 or 5 rocks. And you look at our plan now, and it's like each person has 1, maybe 2, maybe 2. But even then, we have these long arguments and discussions about what is going to be the trade-off of this person having 2 big rocks to carry this quarter, and I think we've just learned that we've had to go back and redo things because we took on too much or we didn't get the job done right. The example I always give people is, if you've got a commitment to redo your website in 12 weeks, there's a huge spectrum of what redo website could be, right? You could spend a little bit of time on that or a lot of time on that. And so what we would do early on is we'd do like, okay, redo website, launch podcast, launch marketing, like one person would have 3 or 4 things. And then we'd be like, why didn't these things get done to the level that we thought they should? But, and so that's the other thing that EOS has helped me do is really focus on the vital few.
I know for me right now, one of them is some more sales. Number 2 is actually personal, which basically amounts to stop eating so many cookies, because working out is never a problem for me. It's the eating cookies part that's a problem for me. And my children know it because they warn me when they leave, don't eat all the cookies. And then the 3rd one is working on a video course. So there's, say, 2 business ones. And the other one is like, I only had 1 cookie today. I've checked that off. It's one of my like daily things, which I actually have not checked off today or yesterday.
We could get into like, what's your habit loop around cookies? Like what's the trigger? Because cookie is the reward.
I make them and then eat them all.
So why are you making cookies, Curtis?
That's a good question. We did actually cut out one of our things we decided to cut out. We don't buy chocolate bars or stuff at the store, which was helpful. Because then if I'm going to, like, if there's no cookies, I actually have to find time to make them. With 3 kids and figure skating and business to run, it's a lot harder.
So, and I don't know if how much time you have. So there's this thing, right? Don't if you don't keep it in the house, right? So if you don't keep, if you don't. So for me, it's like Lucky Charms. All right. And I'm gonna tie this into business. So if I have Lucky Charms in the house, it's just game over. That or Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like that box will get eaten today. And
you go get the popcorn bowl. It's like huge.
Oh yeah. There's so much satisfaction in each bowl. But so like I actually tied this into a mindset that I had around team members. So in EOS, one of the things that we have is a structure called the L10 meeting. So it's where you go in and you identify, discuss, and solve problems that you have in your business. And what I realized was the people that you have in the room directly contribute to the type of solutions that come up. So we had all these problems in our business, and we had custom software developers that were on our team. And it was like every problem that we were faced with was like, oh, we can build an app for that. Oh yeah, we can build an app for that. And like, we just didn't have the habit of like looking for other people that had built the apps for these types of things. And so for the first like couple of years at UGurus, we ended up creating all this custom software, and it was insanely expensive. And I had to finally realize, like, I was like, oh my God, like these guys are my Lucky Charms. Like if they're here, I'm going to use them. If I'm going to have like app developers on my team, like they're going to be put to work. And even if there's easier or cheaper solutions out there, like I'm not going to go there because I have these people I have to keep busy. And that was a huge lesson for me. I kind of looked at them as my business Lucky Charms. Like they were really expensive. They were really bad and unhealthy for the business. But once we took those people out of the meetings, all of a sudden the solutions were, oh, well, we don't have a live stream platform ourselves. So we should need to go find one off the shelf. And then instead of spending, $50K on building your own live stream platform, we went and found one that was $500 a year, And so it's just like for me, that lesson was the solutions that you come up with are dependent on the people you have in the room. So be really conscious of the people you have in the room. And then if you have, even in your business, unhealthy access to whatever your lucky charms are, consider just removing them from the house and see what happens.
I even find designers do that with their own sites, right? Or developers, like I can build it. I know I years ago made a decision. I am not allowed to build my own theme, my own anything. I just have to go off the shelf and I can make like a customization here or there, and that's it. Otherwise, I could spend hours doing it, right? I have one client, and when we first started working together, I was like, well, your site's not up. He's like, I was building my CMS. You're doing what? No, you're not. You're not allowed to do that. If it's not done by the end of next week, then you're not allowed to do it, or we're canceling our engagement. And he finished it in 1 week, and that was it. And but you never should have been doing that in the first place. He was his own lucky charms, per se. So we're actually running out of time here. Where else can people find out about you?
Sorry, Curtis, you cut out just right as you were asking the question.
Where can people find out about you?
I think you said, where can people find out more about me? Okay, yep. Got it. So I'm not sure. The internet gods are smiling great upon me right now. So as long as I'm clear, I'm good. Where can people find out more about me? Go to ugurus.com, ugurus.com. If you are interested in learning more about our courses or our programs, one of the things I always try to give away on our podcast interviews is our web design sales kit. It's a $200 course. And if you just shoot me an email, brent@ugurus.com, I'm happy to give you that course absolutely free. So just shoot me an email, and would love to hear from anybody that's a fan of your show and that wants to learn more.
Thanks. So that was the end of the official show. Now we're jumping in kind of mid-conversation as Brent and I were talking about taxes and what he does with his partner to make sure that they aren't surprised by what the income is at the end of the year. Kind of like what I was, where it was a better year on paper, but it never...
I like owing because then it means you made money, I guess, or made more money than you thought you were if you withhold correctly. But that's like a whole podcast episode. We could
absolutely
talk about taxes.
Well, and then as your business changes a bit too, right? So just the way things changed last year, I had the most revenue year I had, but it felt tighter financially all year because of how we spent. So, and looking at the numbers, even a month ago, 2 months ago, when my accountant finished everything up, I looked at it and was like, my goodness, really? That's not how it felt like the year went, but okay.
I got, I don't know when you want to start, but I got into Mr. Money Mustache. Have you heard of this guy?
I have heard of Mr. Money Mustache.
Yeah. I have read all of his blog posts. That's it was a lot, but I cut my spending pretty much over the last 3 months, pretty much probably by almost 40%-ish. We increased our savings rate from 25-ish% to maybe 60%. So that's a pretty big deal. But anyways.
Yeah, and we've taught, if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey, we've taught his Total Money Makeover material a bunch of times. I've got his books on the floor over there. But my wife is totally the budgeter. And so we know that that's a portion of the business that we need to start. Like we do a monthly family budget meeting. We need to start doing that because I'm just terrible at it. I always intend to do it and then never quite do it at all. So I need to.
Yeah. I can. My business partner, we do have a monthly P&L review where we just literally go through the P&L for the last month and just what's this? Can we cut this? Is this necessary anymore? And you can just catch those things faster. Yeah,
and I just don't do it. So I am not good at that. Good at lots of other things, but that's not one of them. So that's why my wife is great at the budgeting part.